So yeah, we've had some amazing weather today, and right up until coming in to set up for this class, I've been just out in the backyard, so feeling really good, soaked up some sun, and started to take in some of these first signs of spring. So I have a beehive out the back, and around this time, just like the whole yard at the moment just smells like honey, and it's so good. And it's just a nice reminder to drop into some of these simple things. So when we're working with a seasonal sort of sequence, and I'm going to dial into a little bit of spring in this class, and we're talking about then in our elements being the wood element. So the wood element is your liver and your gallbladder. And I'm going to just guide you through tracing out these lines so you'll know when you're working through the postures, what part of the body we're sending that sensation or the lengthening to. So we're going to start with the gallbladder, and it has a bit of a crazy line. It starts on the outside corners of the eyes, and it does like a zigzaggy pattern all the way around the side of the head, all the way over to the top, where it then runs down the back of the neck, comes back out, runs across the front of the shoulders, and all the way down the sides of the body. So we're doing lots of side opening. It then continues all the way down the outsides of the legs, all the way into the fourth toe. And then the gallbladder is paired with the liver. The liver begins at the big toe, and it makes its way across the top of the foot, all the way up the inside of the legs, through to the pelvis, and then around here, around the abdomen, it goes into those internal organs where it wraps around the gallbladder and the liver. So we're going to start in a widening child's pose to begin. And we're going to start to open up through that liver line. That'll be through the inside seams of the legs. You might even like here, just depending on how it feels for you, you can tuck your toes as well. So if we tuck the toes and make sure that they all get under, particularly the big toe and the fourth toe, that means we'll be getting into both the gallbladder, bladder, and the liver meridian lines. Nice long holds for all of our postures through this class as well. So we're looking at about 4 to 5 minutes for each posture. And maybe just for this very first position, while also dialing into your natural breath, perhaps just contemplating or bringing to mind what you would see the wood element and how you think that could appear or show up in your life. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we move through the postures. But just for this first one, allowing you to settle into the space and maybe just some of your own reflection on what that could look like or what that could feel like. Also, just a reminder for our yin postures is as we switch into a nice, relaxed, natural breath, we start to dial into our parasympathetic nervous system, and that signals to the skeletal muscles to start to release. So sometimes we just look through the body, notice if there's tension building up in any of the muscles, directing exhales to that part of the body, possibly just getting that tension or resistance to shift, allowing you to sink and the bones to rest down, getting into your connective tissues of the body. As I mentioned, long holds for all of our postures, so around the 2-minute mark, I'll let you know where we're halfway in a pose, and then that's the opportunity if you'd like to make space to move deeper, or perhaps you'd like to back out slightly, you can make those adjustments for the following 2 minutes. So we'll say here in child's pose, this is our 2-minute mark. You can either remain as you are. If the toes are tucked and that's not quite working, feel free to flatten the tops of the feet down onto the mat. And just allowing the chest to melt down through the arms. As well as working here through the inside of the hips and the pelvis, both of those lines travel up through the abdomen. So we have the gallbladder on the sides, and the liver running up the front. So we're probably working a little more into that liver meridian line here as we create that length or extension through spine. And just finding that sensation that's the right space that you can hold for the duration of time. As minimal movement as possible, just the breath flowing. always make an adjustment if it's a little bit too much sensation, easing out. But making sure that there's something there, you can feel something through the body. Take another 4 breaths. Start to make your way out of your child's pose. If you had the toes tucked, now might be a nice time to just flatten the tops of the feet and give the toes a little tap out. And our second posture will be the threaded needle. So with that gallbladder that runs down the side of the body, we can get into that with twisting postures. So with our threaded needle for 4 minutes, you might just like to have propping close. You can slide it under if you feel that it's necessary once you're in the position. But it's like we're moving into our heart melting posture, so we're going to walk the arms out in front of the body, get sustained nice and high, and then we'll take the right arm, and we'll thread it under the body and bringing that twist in. Just allowing the heart to melt down, reaching, stretching out. So that meridian line, which starts, let's talk about the right side of the body, from the outside corner of your right eye, and moves all the way around the cheek, all the way around to the top of the head, and starts moving down the neck. So we're getting a little bit of stimulation there for the top of the body. And then as it travels down the right side of the rib cage, all the way down the right side of the body. So just by bringing this little rotation and start to stimulate and work into that gallbladder. Halfway in. And for the last minute, if you'd like to just bring a little more opening, you can take the left hand, drape it across the back, and just gently moving into that bind. So you just weave the left fingers between the abdomen and the top of your right thigh. Making sure if you've taken that bind or that modification that it hasn't brought any stress into the posture. You're able to sit here comfortably in the twist. Natural breath still flowing. One more breath. bind, let's take the left hand back up and overhead. We're going to start to unthread the right arm, and let's sink the hips back to the heels into a neutral child's pose here. A little reset. 6 breaths. As we start to make our way back up to the tabletop, take that threaded or thread the needle to the second side. So we're going to walk the hands forward again. This time it'll be the left arm weaving underneath the body. Maybe the shoulder and the left ear come down to the mat. Otherwise you can add some pillows or blankets underneath. And settle in for 4 minutes, twisting to the other side. When we think about the qualities of wood, let's just refer to, say, my story of being out in the garden and the trees. We think about trees being nice and strong and sturdy, but they also have a certain amount of give. A give to the breeze or any of the elements. If a tree is too rigid and sturdy, what will happen is it won't be able to bend or allow things to pass. It will become attached or become a bit of a blockage for the elements to move. And so in those cases, when wood is too rigid, it ends up failing and falling. And that can happen when our inner wood element gets out of balance, so when we become too attached to things. When we're unmoving and refuse to change or go with the flow. Become like this solid brick wall or a solid tree. It ends up causing us that little bit more harm or discomfort. This is the halfway point. For the last minute, if you'd like to add the bind, you take the right arm behind the back, gently weaving it between the abdomen and the front of your left thigh. 2 more breaths. You've taken the bind, right hand returns overhead. Start to take the left arm out from under the body. Now let's take 4 breaths back in the child pose. And starting to walk back. Next posture is mermaid. Mermaid is another side opening posture. So for mermaid, we'll come down onto the right hip and the right foot sort of rests on top of the left. So we have both knees in a 90-90, almost like you're coming into deer pose. Instead, we're going to take some cushioning or some support to the side of the body. So we can bring the leg right up against that, and then we'll start to lean the right side of the body over that support. So depending on how deep you'd like to come down, you can always rest an elbow or your back of the tricep onto something and just allow the head to rest in your hand. If you'd like to come all the way over into that side bend, and you roll all the way over, you might even then take the left hand up and overhead. So it's a big side bend. If you think about the internal organs, the liver and the gallbladder in relation to the wood element, they have a very similar function to, say, how trees are working in nature, that detoxifying effect on the system. And so if I just read through a little bit here about a liver located on the right side of the body and just underneath the ribs. It's the primary chemical factory of the body where detoxification takes place. The liver filters the blood and stores it for when we rest and releases it when we need it. And as the gallbladder contributes to the creation of bile through the body to assist in the breakdown of fats through the intestines. We always think about this shape, the mermaid, kind of like being that tree that's bending or swaying to whatever is trying to pass through, whether that's a wind or a storm. So the lower part of the body is still connected to the earth, the upper part of the body is kind of taking on that shape or shifting to whatever needs to pass. Halfway in, if you'd like to make any adjustments, feel free to maybe take a few props away. So this is a posture that actually works better when we have a little extra pop in there, because it will give us more of an arch through the side of the body, working into the lines running down the sides of the ribs. Getting into that gallbladder meridian line. will be the final 6 breaths. Make your way up slowly through center. And you can take this straight into mermaid on the second side. We're just going to shuffle the legs. So now we can bring the left foot to the top of the right thigh. Taking the props to the other side of the body. And slowly take that lean over to the left side. There's a story that I've read in one of the translations of the Yoga Sutras, which it was talking about Sthira-Sukha-Vasanam, all this concept of steadiness, of ease in every posture that we take or in every aspect of our life. And it's the story about this big tree that was growing on the side of a riverbank. Massive, tall, towering tree, so big and strong. And one day this tree looked down to the riverbank and saw a tiny little weed beginning to grow up beside it. And this big tree looks down at the weed and laughs and says, "Aren't you embarrassed to grow so close to me? Like, look at me, look how big and strong I am, and look at you just down there within the dirt and the mud." And the weed looked up to the tree and said, "Tree, I didn't really choose to be here, but here I am, and here I'll be. I'll just make the most of what I've got." And for the next few days, the tree continued to sort of shame and really make this weed feel out of place, until a big storm came through and the river swelled and the water started running, and it just gradually begins to erode the bank to the point where this big tall tree, its roots are starting to be exposed, and next thing it's starting to fall and it topples and it gets washed down the river. The weed, however, because it was so small and subtle, was able to bend over to the force of the river that was rising, and the water just ran straight over it. So when the river eventually died back down and the storm had passed, the weed sat up and looked around, and the big tree was gone, nowhere to be seen, and all the weed could hear from somewhere way down the river was the voice of the big tree saying, "I shouldn't have been so hard on you, I should have been a little bit softer and not sort of lent into this strength and sturdiness that basically that he thought he'd grown into." The same as us, where I guess we could talk there about attaching to the ego and thinking that where all these things, our ego, all of our achievements, and forgetting the little things that make us, and being flexible, or the ability to move and sway to whatever elements there are, whatever experiences. Just like a little weed, or let's not just call it a weed, let's say any little plant, we're grounded, connected to the earth, and the ability to sway and move to whatever's thrown at us. We have another 6 breaths. from here. I just have to walk my hands back in. We'll make my way back. So we switch back to the first side. I'm going to take the legs in a very similar shape, but this time we'll come into deer. So we have the right shin roughly parallel with the top edge of the mat, and the left leg runs down the outside. So there's a 90-degree bend through both legs. And then we can start to fold forward. If you'd like to bring props to the front of the mat, you can use them. Otherwise, you can start to bow all the way down. So this shape very similar to, say, your half pigeon or your swan, where we have that external rotation through the front leg opening, and we have the internal rotation through the back leg. And so with those meridian lines, you have the liver running through the inside seam of the leg through to the pelvis, and you start to fold forward. I always had this funny moment whenever I'm doing any study before a class and I'm reading over notes, and I see little things start to pop up, and I'm like, okay, I need to do a little bit of work in this myself. I notice things that, and I think this is really appropriate, the wood theme with our current circumstances. So at the moment we're in our lockdown, and it looks like it's going to get a little bit tougher over the next week. And so when our wood gets, there's imbalance in the wood, it starts to show up as anger, rage, irrational emotions, explosive, impulsive, offensive on your personal boundaries. It could be annoyance, irritation, rash decisions, hesitancy, and timidness. I almost refer to that again as just being that stubborn, tall, strong tree, refusing to sway or make space, and eventually something hits it that's just beyond what it's capable of standing up to. And that's us. And say in this moment, we refuse to sway or bend to what's being asked of us. And we just make it difficult and hard on ourselves. And if we're continuing with this good theme, maybe what we need to do is just take a little step back. Take a moment to reconnect with the earth, get a little sun, a little rehydration. Have balance with our wood elements, and so we're able to make appropriate connections, we're clear in planning and flexible to change and adapt well. Take another 6 breaths here in deer. Maybe there's enough space to start to deepen and fold down. Walk the hands back here. So come around to a seated position from here. I'd like to cross the legs or cut myself up. We're going to take a twist to the left side. A little counter twist here. So I'll bring the left hand behind the body, right hand's on the knee, and start to twist around to the left. So no need to force into this twisted position. Again, just think about those gallbladder meridian lines running down the outside edge of both sides of the body. Just giving them a little pull. Feel a little lift through the body each time you inhale. And the exhale, releasing, creating space. Halfway through. Four more breaths. And start to return to something. Now from here we're moving into square pose. That's quite a big deep hip opener. It's a posture that I actually struggle with quite a lot, so I can show you how to support this one. I'm going to take the left knee on the bottom, and because we already worked with the right opening of the right hip, we're going to take that one on top. So roughly the positioning in square would be to stack both shins on top of each other, and taking the right foot on top of the left knee. And as you can see with me, that's just about as far as my hips can go down. So if you can get your legs stacked, that's all tweaks. You're not really helping, you're making that a lot harder. But for me, I'm going to stack a couple of pillows here underneath my right knee. So once you have your legs in position, then there's the option to also start to fold forward. And square is probably a good reminder to be flexible and supple with your choices. No need to force ourselves into an uncomfortable position just to be in a certain shape, working with whatever sensations are there for you, what's showing up for you today on the mat. And then being perfectly fine with what the shape of your posture looks like. As I mentioned, this shape in particular, the square, can have a lot to do with the shape of your hip sockets and the way that the femur moves, or the head of the femur sits within the hip. It's important with postures that might have quite a strong sensation through the body, that after a couple of rounds of breath, maybe a little body scan, making sure that you're still okay to sit there. We're about halfway through. Last 4 breaths. We start to walk on the back. So it to be really gentle, extreme as possible, just because of how strong it is. So if you're using your props, just slide them out. I'm going to assist the top leg, gently lifting off. And we'll straighten out both legs. Just give the feet a little sway from left to right. And so we're doing those 3 postures on the other side. So that'll be deer first, with the left shin across the front of the mat. The right moves down the side, that 90-degree bend through both legs. And then just begin to fall forward. It's also a nice release now for the left side after being on the stack on the top in the square. Now it has that internal rotation through the hip. Halfway in, if you'd like to move a little bit deeper, feel free to start to lower the head all the way down towards the earth. the final 6 breaths. Making your way back up. And into our counter twist, we're twisting towards the right this time. Let's take the left shin in front of the right. Right hand behind the back for support. Left hand just gently resting over the opposite knee. And we'll twist. Really rest the body weight back into your supporting hand, the one behind the body. Halfway through the twist, three more breaths. Start to return back. We have square pose on the second side. So this time we're taking the right shin down, the left foot stacks on top, or wherever is most comfortable for you to place. And if you'd like that added extra support and propping, stack underneath the left knee. Be here for just over 3 minutes. Make sure that it's comfortable enough to hold for that duration of time as you begin to fall forward. Just that gentle reminder to deactivate any muscle engagement, particularly here through the hips, softening through the hips, allowing the body to get heavy, feeling your body when it comes down, and dropping forward. One minute left. Last two breaths. Nice and gently start to extend left leg, extend right leg, and give them a little rock. Here we'll move down onto a reclined position on the mat. We're taking a twist. So with all of that hip work, there's the option to take twisted roots, which would bind the right leg up and over the left, maybe even tucking the toes behind the calf. If you prefer not to twist the legs, keep your knees together. We're not forcing into the twists. So we can also bring a pillow here to the left side. Slightly shift the hips over to the right and then allow the knees to drop down. And then you can come down to rest on your support to allow the shoulders to stay evenly pressured back into the mat. As we sometimes offer in twists, to take the gaze the opposite direction to your legs. So you might like to look over towards your right hand. The final reflection of the meridian lines through the body, the gallbladder starting from the corner of the left eye, weaving all the way around the cheek, up and over the face, down the neck, across the front of the shoulder to the outside of the left side of the body, and down both sides, all the way down. So we're getting into the gallbladder through the twist. And with the liver moving up inside the seam of the legs and through the pelvis, activating both lines with the twisted roots. We're also staying in theme with our wood element. Then take that twist back up to the center. Unravel the legs if you're taking the bind. This time we'll bring the pillow onto the right side. Shift the hips back into the center. We'll take the left leg up and over the right this time. So again, if you bind through the legs, you shift the hips to the left side and allow them to roll to the right. Otherwise, you can take the knees together and drop them to the side. You'd like to continue the rotation up through the neck, shift the gaze towards your left hand. And start to return to center, unraveling legs. Two options for your final resting shape. If you'd like to take the soles of the feet together, big diamond shape between the heels and hips, knees dropping open. Otherwise, you can extend your legs out into your pentacle or your shavasana. Arms rest down beside your body, palms turned up. Natural breath. Nice and slowly, movement returning to your fingers and your toes. Begin to reach the arms overhead, pointing through the toes, lengthen through the body into your full body stretch. Inhale. Open mouth, sigh, release, exhale. Giving the knees hug in towards your chest. Taking your roll over to your right side. And then all the way up to a seated position. Reaching the arms out wide. Taking the palms overhead. Lowering the prayer through the center of your body. All the way to your heart. Breath in. Bowing forward with your exhale. We say to ourselves and each other, Namaste.